people. It felt like I was at a podcast festival for spiritual podcasts, because that seemed like everybody I talked to was in that realm, and it's a very small niche, so it's a big thing. If you look at podcasts, most of them are interview shows.
Yeah.
So stuff like that happens, and it really can't be denied. Humorously enough, the other conversation, I had 3 interviews, Zoom calls Monday, and I guess that's yesterday. And the other one was a woman who had sent me an email, who was a podcaster that arrived the day I got back from PodFest. And I was like, I don't remember this name. I had so many conversations though. And I was like, I feel bad for not remembering our conversation at PodFest. She goes, what's PodFest? And she's a spiritual podcaster who's asking me if I want to be on her show.
All right.
By pure coincidence, the universe keeps lining me up with the people that I set an intention to meet. So what is that? It's a synchronicity.
It is.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
I love Carl Jung.
And
it's an amazing time to be alive, because there is something amazing and spiritual happening in the world.
It is.
And I think it has ripple effects across not just people, but even animals. I mean, so much of videos. I always, apparently my algorithm now has been trained that Stacey likes animal videos. It's like these things pop off on Facebook, and there's like a musk ox, and there's this tortoise that's upside down, and this musk ox is doing everything it can to flip that tortoise over. Like, why would an animal, a musk ox, care about a tortoise? And then another video pops up, and it's a dolphin pushing a sea turtle onto the back of a fishing boat, and they pull the sea turtle up, and it's got a rope around its neck that it's cutting on into its neck, so that it was helping it get up there so they could help it. They took it off, they released it back into the ocean, and they both swam off together. I mean, these are human traits, what we attribute to human traits, like the humanity of these animals. But it's not humanity, it's animal-amity? I don't know what you call it. But there's this beautiful, there's something spiritual about that. There's something greater. The soul of these creatures is emerging in a way that we haven't seen before. And I think the same is true of humans, where there's a lot of fear in the world right now, but there's also a lot of empathy. It's I hate to call it a religious experience, but it is a deeply spiritual experience, and very connecting with, you have deep connecting moments with people. For me, it was deeply connecting with me, like a piece of me that I don't always connect with that deeply. And I'm a meditator. Speaking for myself, I have to fight getting too cerebral about stuff. But when I have a mystic experience like that is, could be called nothing but spiritual, I just accept it now as a gift. Because that experience I had with me, and that was an interesting one, because it wasn't just me, Stacey, at 50-something at the time, having this experience with my 8-year-old self. It was actually my 8-year-old self also having this experience with Stacey, the adult, who, by the way, is forever going to take care of that little kid. Like, my inner child knows he's in my protection. And he's also out and having a blast.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing too, just because I've taken plant medicines and you've taken them. I don't think we're not promoting it and telling people what to do, right? Can I have you introduce yourself, Stacey? Tell my audience a little bit about you, what you do. I know you started last year, right, with your YouTube channel, and
yeah, just launched the YouTube channel. So, my name's Stacy Wheeler. I'm the host of the Soul Podcast. It's everywhere you can find podcasts, you can find the Soul Podcast. It's nice. You get a good organization that you're attached to that puts these things out there, and can be found easily. So if you think about doing a podcast, reach out. I'll help you out with that. Soul Podcast is a show that links spirituality, psychology, and philosophy. And all my shows are about finding the beauty in life, finding the joy in life, and becoming the best version of yourself.
Are you originally from Auburn, Placer County, born and raised?
I'm not. I'm a Northern California guy, though. I grew up in Humboldt County.
Okay.
Late 70s, early through the 80s, and that was a great place to grow up during that time. It's just gotten a little more sketchy now, but it was pretty idyllic, growing up near a river and just swimming in the river, jumping off the bridges.
Was there some kind of like hippie community or something? I remember seeing like a documentary that helicopters came in and...
Yeah, that was in the 80s. That was campaign against marijuana plantation. I had some really bizarre experiences growing up because the marijuana culture there, Humboldt State University is right there. So in the 70s, it was very hippie, really hippie. It's a college town and all that. And so the marijuana cultivation just went through the roof, and it was just sort of part of the normal thing, I didn't really think much about it. How you grow up is your normal. And the good thing about that was that now I look back and it's bizarre, but like my friend, some girl I was dating's family grew weed, and I went over to her house one day and there was just marijuana hanging all around, And I was raised by a Christian woman who just frowned on all that, and I was a very straight-laced kid up until about 16. And but you would be down by the river swimming, and you'd walk into some bushes and find an illegal grow, and you just kind of know to back out. You're driving down the road and there's a plant in the middle of the road. It was an interesting way to grow up.
Yeah.
It was just part of what seemed normal then.
Yeah, that's, and I think it's great what was going up there. I've heard many stories, and like you said, now it's completely different. And I think a lot of that is the cartels and the legal grows that they do everywhere, right? And I remember hearing on Rogan, there was, what are they called? The wildlife. There's like a faction of law enforcement that kind of game, fish and wildlife.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing one of the main ones up in San Jose coming across, and it was huge. And I think it was like in the 80s or something. And they ran off, and he said 10 years later, they were shooting back at them from...
Yeah, it changed a lot. There was something with the camp program, Campaign Against Marijuana Plantation, that they had black helicopters flying over. And in like the mid-80s, you heard a lot of locals going on the news channels complaining. It's like, I'm sunbathing in my backyard and there's a helicopter, up there taking pictures. They were abusive of their power.
Yeah.
There were a lot of cowboys. They were just total cowboys back then. I think they thought they were trying to do the right thing, but you get a couple bad apples, they give the rest a bad name, right?
Yeah, that's true. So it sounds like kind of Nevada City currently was that back there when...
Yeah, Nevada City's definitely got kind of an arcade feel to it.
Yeah, they say like an outlaw town, or used to be an outlaw town, and
it's interesting, a little outlaw town, like this used to be our own gunslinger town too, and now it's just so quaint.
Yeah. So
I didn't ask, did we do a level check on the mic?
Oh no, you're good.
Okay, we're good.
It goes automatically. Yeah, no, you're good.
I think too much like a production guy.
No, you should. So I noticed in your email that you're of Celtic descent.
I am.
So, question: do you know who the Druids are?
Mm-hmm.
Are they?
Well, as much as you can understand the Druids,
are they similar? Are they Celtic, the Druids?
There's a connection there. In the Celts actually came from mainland Europe.
Okay.
And when you think of the Celts, you think northern Ireland and northern England, Scotland area. But they were originally, they were the ones who the Romans were fighting on mainland Europe, and they spread out. And then even the Viking blood goes into Celt lines apparently.
Okay.
The Druids are an enigma because no one's like. The Druids theoretically were the ones who created Stonehenge, and still no one is quite entirely certain what it was used for, and whether there were any live human sacrifices there, or if it was, there's all these giant questions about it, and it's interesting. I was watching something on this recently, and it's fascinating.
On the Druids?
Yeah.
Do you remember what it was that you were watching?
I don't. It was a documentary that may have been on Gaia.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like, when you're scrolling, you're like, oh, Druids, what's that about, And it was a look at the enigma of the Druids that, who were they? But the wild thing is there is this interconnection with, were Druids a nationality, or were they just a philosophy? Was it a philosophical group of people who thought the same, kind of like a religion, or was it actually a group that was a nationality, like the bloodlines connected? And so they didn't really go away. They just kind of got integrated into the bloodlines in, Europe, and mostly England, apparently.
Yeah, from what I know from studying them and like the myth from them, if you believe in like what Graham Hancock talks about, ancient civilization that was very advanced, which they say was
I love
Atlantis.
his stuff. Yeah, his stuff's fantastic.
They say Atlantis, right? And they say that the people that survived or knew that Atlantis, what was going to happen to it, the Druids were the ones that were there and already had that connection with nature.
That makes sense on the timeline.
Yeah. And do you know what QHHT is? Dolores Cannon?
I know the name Dolores Cannon.
So
I keep getting her books recommended to me.
Quantum healing, hypnosis, therapy, something, I might be butchering it. And she would get people into these deep meditative states, hypnotic states, and past life regressions. And Dolores Cannon, I believe, was one of the first ones in like mid 90s, late 2000s. And a lot of people that she was hypnotizing were talking about Atlantis. And eventually she wrote books too about Yeshua, Jesus Christ, and the Essenes and how he came from that faction. It was a Jewish faction that supposedly wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls, and all this stuff is out there, but hidden, you don't.
It's interesting, the more, and you and I, it sounds like we're very similar that way, that I see all these dots, and I'm starting to see how many of them connect, and to the extent that I sometimes wonder, am I filling in these blanks, or does it really make this much sense? Because a lot of it does.
It does.
I listen to a lot of Graham Hancock stuff and watch his stuff as well. So I like that. This. Well, Göbekli Tepe as an enigma just blows my mind, because it's right at the end of that sort of that Younger Dryas impact period, where suddenly you've got a rebuilding of society. About 12,000 years ago, which aligns with the exact, within a very short period of time, aligns with when the Atlantis thing theoretically happened and the Great Flood myth, which so many other cultures agreed to sort of the timeline on that as well, around 12,000. And then on top of that, you look at Göbekli Tepe as being this enigma that they're doing things that we didn't think that literally saber-toothed tigers and a woolly mammoth were still roaming the earth when that place was built. And the artwork on it isn't, they're using stones, this is before metal, and they carved stone, not into it, but reliefs where all the artwork actually stands out from. So that's advanced art.
It is.
That culture was way more, they didn't just wake up one day and go, how about we do something that we've never been able to do ever before in the history of us. That was actually a high point in their culture. So they had come up from something. That kind of stuff blows my mind. And that people don't understand that, we think of Stonehenge as being ancient. Göbekli Tepe's twice as old as Stonehenge. And we just don't even know what it's about. But it completely rewrites history, because clearly what we thought of as cavemen were much more advanced than we realized.
Well, and it's like us right now, we have a cell phone, we have, electric powered cars, maybe there's already a hydrogen motor out there that's being suppressed. But then you also have these uncontacted tribes in Brazil, right?
That blows your mind, huh?
So, I can see humanity is probably older than we can imagine. And I think on purpose, it's been hidden and covered up. So as humanity, as humans, we don't know how divine we are, the divinity that we have inside of us. And I feel it's on purpose, because there's some kind of beings or something out there I've heard that kind of feed off of us being unconscious, right? And
so when you say uncovered, you don't mean uncovered by the powers that be, the government and whatnot, suppressing information, but that we're not supposed to have the full story.
No, because if we realize, and I think that's what like a lot of the teachings of Yeshua, aka Jesus Christ, he wasn't saying that he was God's son. He's saying we all are.
That's my read on it as well. That we're all a piece of the great divine.
Yeah. And the divine is everywhere. It's in nature. Nature heals us, but there's no trees anywhere. So, global warming, fires, the Native Americans had these controlled burns when the Spaniards arrived. And just all this ancient knowledge and history, it's all been burned on purpose. So we fall into this false matrix that we live in where we think we have to work, we think we have to be stressed, we think we have to compete with people, right? So it creates this environment that we're like rats inside a wheel and we're forced to participate when we don't, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
And that's why, to me, a big thing I'm very bullish on is cryptocurrency. And not just Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is going to be that asset, that big, I don't know, platinum, but you need all these different ones.
Yeah, Bitcoin's kind of like gold. It's like a repository for
It
wealth.
is.
And there, you know, we could go down a whole thing on that. But yeah, I've done really well in crypto.
Nice.
I mean, I wish I had been smart enough when I was laughing at Bitcoin at $7 to buy then, because $100 back then would make, well, I'd have my own island or something.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's crazy how well it's done. But yeah, you know, during the lockdowns when they were sending out checks, I was like, I kept working. I was like, but they still send me $600 check or whatever it was. So I took both of those and just throw them at crypto.
Amazing.
And it's 20x'd. Because it just sits there. I mean, you don't cash out crypto. You hold on for dear life. Just stick it in there, forget about it. And I've pulled almost $9,000 out, and I've still got more than double that in there from the investment. It must have been. I mean, it was ridiculous. I've never done that well on stocks. So if you're not doing crypto, Ethereum and Bitcoin. You can't go wrong with either of those two.
And there's many more. There's XRP, there's XLM, there's ADA, Cardano.
And strangely enough, Doge has done very well for me as well. Yeah, you know, I bought it sort of as whatever. It's only $400 and it's not my money, and it's just gone through the roof. It's crazy.
You know,
it's enthusiasm. Crypto, if you don't understand crypto and you don't like it, and you're scared of it, my brother's like, I'm not going to buy it. Nothing's backing it. And I said, well, what backs the dollar? And he goes, well, because people use it. I go, right, enthusiasm is what makes it valuable. And that's what makes crypto valuable, enthusiasm.
That's amazing, Stacey. You're the first person. We don't even know each other. And before we even start talking, we're already thinking of the same ideas and connecting on, you know, entheogens, psychedelics, plant medicines.
Yeah, we click, man. I like it.
And I don't think this is a coincidence. These are synchronicities that are bringing people together, and the more people share and help one another, you know,
Yeah, we should have started recording a half an hour ago while he's setting up.
And you know what? This always happens. Always before and always after. And I go, no, hold on. We got to talk
You
again.
get that on the Joe Rogan show where he says, yeah, we had to stop talking earlier because we knew we were about to start recording. We already talked about the good stuff.
Yeah. No, and it's interesting, Stacey. Like, I was following Bitcoin, I believe, since like 2010, but I didn't know where to buy it. The Mount Gox thing, right? It was, is this real?
Yeah, it's scary.
Is this fake? Like, I had no idea. And I remember when it went to 20,000 in 2016, I was crying. Like, I guess I'm never going to get it because I thought it was going to...
Never going to go any higher than that. Now it's 100 and whatever.
Yeah, and I thought it was going to go to 1 million when it went to 20, and then it came down, and I was able to get it at a decent price in 2018, and I've been stacking.
I think a lot of people too are not buying just because they think, well, I don't have 100,000 to buy a Bitcoin. You could buy a fraction.
Yeah.
I buy $40 every paycheck.
Yeah.
A fraction of coin, and I just have it as a standing order, so I don't feel it, but it's accumulating.
Do you know about the Satoshis inside the Bitcoin?
The Satoshis in the Bitcoin.
So there's 100,000 Satoshis inside of one Bitcoin.
Oh, that's how they fraction it?
Yeah.
And I know why they call it the Satoshi, of course.
Yeah.
But no, I'd never heard of that.
And do you know who Robert Edward Grant is? He's a polymath. He used to be a pharmaceutical, and I'll send you some of his podcasts. They're amazing.
Yeah, I'll get that name, and great, you're going to send me down a rabbit hole, Amato.
And he was talking about what Satoshi Nakamoto means in Japanese, and it's like characteristics, and he was saying something of wisdom within the field is what it translates to in Japanese.
Interesting.
Wisdom within the field, like
you know, it's a fake name. You know, it's not a real person, but you know, they have a theory of who Satoshi is, because Satoshi's got a big, huge chunk of coin sitting that's never been cashed. But there's also a timeline for a guy who was questionable who went into prison right about the time Bitcoin launched or just after, and they think when he gets out, all that's going to get cash. And I forget the backstory, but I don't know if you heard about that. I wish I could remember his name.
Well, I've heard another theory of this. I think he was a cyberpunk from like the 70s, and he was a scientific nerd. His name is Hal Finney. He died poor. Hal Finney. He died poor. So a lot of people from, I think Charles Hopkins is a guy who helped build Ethereum, and he's the one that built Cardano ADA, and Vlati Bulkin, I believe is his name, from Ethereum.
Yeah.
They've both said they think it's Hal Finney that is.
It could be. I mean, if it never gets cashed out, that's probably who it is.
Yeah, and
I mean, someone broke down what that stake in Bitcoin is worth, and I think it makes him the richest man in the world.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's why people come in here to create something and kind of just give it away, and
I just think it's beautiful if that's actually what happened.
Yeah.
Because how often do you hear of that happening?
You don't.
It's so rare.
It is.
That somebody just does something beautiful to do something beautiful because they see the glory and the possibilities of it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that we all have. We all have something to contribute to society. It could be the smallest little thing that maybe you're never recognized for it, but I think in the afterlife or the fifth dimension or wherever we go from here, everyone's cheering you on, like you did it. You created this frequency, right? There's people that say that's
how I envision death.
Yeah.
Like this great receiving line of beautiful souls you once knew. Just going, you did it. Excellent work.
Come on.
Yeah.
When are you going back?
I did an episode on past life regression last season, 2 seasons ago, and near-death experience. And actually, I didn't do past life regression yet. I think I just did the near-death experience. It was a 5-episode one. And it was fascinating because one of the takeaways I got from all the interviews I did, all the stuff I read about it, all the research I looked into about it, nobody in that has one of these experiences feels like they were shamed. Like even when you get like the whole thing about here's your whole life in fast motion on all these screens, like you get what they call the flashback, right, or the end of life review. None of them felt like the religious perspective says, oh, you'll be, God will judge you for the mistakes you've made. It's not. It's that you understand the pain that was created from the perspective of the other person. And it's so consistent that I love that thought that, we're not going to be beaten up for what we got wrong. We're going to understand what we got wrong and be able to have the opportunity to maybe do it better next time.
Yeah, and I think that is what we're doing. We're just learning. There's no right or wrong way to do things. I think, maybe there's some souls that are tormented and decide to take the dark path, like Genghis Khan, millions of people that he killed. How is he doing on the other side? I don't know, maybe he
People
agrees.
think about Hitler, like, wow, what was that like? He's like, boy, Adolf, what were you thinking?
Yeah, and I think what we come here kind of to learn is to not judge. There's a dark, there's a light, but you can't have one without the other. And we have to integrate the dark aspects of ourselves to become whole and to realize our divinity and that we're a multi-dimensional being. And I just think it's so much, and religion ties in a lot into making us believe in heaven and hell and being sinners or having guilt and all, and that takes a lifetime to reprogram that.
For sure.
I was raised Roman Catholic. My parents don't even speak any English. We're from Mexico, Mexican descent. But I knew for the longest time, I was like, I've read all the Bible and everything. Why aren't the dinosaurs in there? If where are all these missing pieces? This kind of doesn't make sense, And I always had questions.
I was the same way with the Bible when I was a kid, so I totally get it. That's why I'm over here nodding and smiling. I'm like, similar journey. I'm like, there's some things that don't line up.
And then, not necessarily the Aztecs, but the Toltecs, the Olmecs, and the Mayans. The Mayans just knew how to tell time. Thousands of years.
They were amazingly advanced mathematically.
How? Right? Yeah. How did they do this? That
is the ultimate unanswered question in North America.
Yeah, and so I remember in school too when they're like, the Mayans created these crazy temples. They had like this Eden kind of garden and floating chinapas or whatever they called them. And the Aztecs also say that they're not the ones that built the pyramid. There's a researcher, I forget his name, from Fresno, archaeologist. He said that he saw some kind of hieroglyph or deity in like the four corners where Arizona, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico meet, that there were some kind of hieroglyph there connected to the Aztecs. And that the Aztecs had a deity that was like a hummingbird. I can't really pronounce his name. And he told them, or told their shaman that to head down south. And when you arrive to the feathered bird eating a scaly snake on top of a cactus, and this is your home. And that's when they came across.
Sounds like all the iconography from that area too.
Yeah.
But everything's snakes and feathered plumed serpents and whatnot, you know.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I saw that in one of my plant medicines. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea. I just thought I'm gonna have a real bad trip.
Wow, interesting.
It was so huge. It took up my whole peripheral. And the first thing I saw were these like white and gray scales. They were huge. Like that's all I could. And I just saw it spinning, and I go, "Oh."
And was it feathered too?
At that, well, when it kind of like you saw the scales, and it's like spinning, and then it like backed out, and then it came forward, and it had these white, pink, and I had no idea what it was, Stacy. I had no idea. So that sent me down the rabbit hole. Like, what is this? Quetzalcoatl, like the plum serpent. I was like, what is it?
It's one of the great the great deity, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Of that entire area. It goes by several different names depending on where you're at in Central or South America.
Yeah.
That's wild. Do you think you attribute that to your genetic history? Like it's kind of.
So, do you know what the Akashic records are?
Uh-huh.
So I had somebody read my Akashic record, and the first thing that she told me was, "You want to know about your reptilian little horns?" And I was like, "What?" I was like, "How?
She knew.
How?
Wow."
So
talk about instant street cred.
Oh yeah, I was just like, "Holy moly! Like, how are all these things possible and true?" Right? Because some of the experiences are so hard to comprehend and understand, and it's just like, what's going on here, right? And
do you meditate as well?
I'm trying to. It's just hard with work and everything.
There's a combination there with plant medicine and meditation, and both of those things are really just get you into a space of yourself where you get more out of your physical self and more into your true self. What I'll call my true self, at least. And there is something about that when we get there, that when we start experiencing things like this, whether they're, and I've had many of these experiences both on plant medicine and completely sober meditation. I've had some experiences that can only be considered to be psychedelic, but they were more real than real. But I think we get there because we back away enough from our physical self, the human ego, and all those things to be open to them. And then we, of course, as soon as we come out of it, we immediately, with our ego and our human existence and our physical self, start questioning how that can possibly be true and trying to disqualify it. When at some very deep core level, we know it's real.
Yeah.
You know, the strange thing about when we know something is real is the way it resonates in us.
Yeah.
And when I stop trying to challenge these things and just start accepting them, there's never been one that wasn't beautiful.
Yeah.
Not one. I don't have experiences where I'm like, how can that can't be real? That was scary. That was so amazing. That can't be real. Why do we want to reject the beautiful stuff? Yeah. And this is what the Soul Podcast is about, folks.
Yeah, I know. This is
the
amazing.
Kind of things I go into.
Yeah, and so for me, like, it's just taken me down so many rabbit holes, and I know about an Akashic reader because there's somebody called Debbie Solaris, and she doesn't do them no more. She has like a 6,000 person wait to do it because she's so popular. So she teaches other people.
She must be good.
And I'm going to have this person on my show, I think, next month. that did my Akashic reading.
You have to give me a heads up.
Oh, I
Check
will.
that out.
Yeah, and I can give you her information.
I'll just subscribe to your show. I think I already did.
Yeah, and
I get the updates when they pop.
So with Debbie Solaris, when she saw Quetzalcoatl too, and she was saying that he comes from the Sirius C system, and she doesn't know a lot about him. That he was a shapeshifter, just a higher conscious being. I don't know if you know about the Nagas from India. They're these like snake beings too.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so I think like in Thailand, if you go to certain like pyramids and structures,
Yeah, they got big snake presence there.
Yeah, and even I think the Buddha, right, has like the 7 snakes behind them, or serpents.
Is that the one that it looks a lot like the medical symbol? I forget what it's called.
I think that's like but I believe
on a staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so much with, and a lot of it is what's it called? Not symbolism, right? And that's kind of what our subconscious speaks to us with symbols and kind of like riddles, right? And I think we're beginning to remember all these things, and slowly we're untapping what we are. And I think that's the great part of this whole life, is everything's so difficult and challenging. So when you start stepping into these mystical aspects and these awakenings, like it just makes sense. Like it resonates with you.
It's
like
that click. Yeah. That vibrationally true feeling.
Yeah.
And like you, I mean, I grew up in the church, and I have a very skeptical mind. I'm also male, so that plays against my ability to get into my more softer feminine way of thinking and looking at things, where women are so much better at just going, oh, yeah, and just drop into this sort of soft esoteric space. It's taken me actually having to work at it to get there. And then also getting over all my religious conditioning that told me about so many things that are supposed to be untrue. But now I'm finding that I question greatly whether any of, a lot of these things are accurate or not that I was taught as a child.
Yeah.
And it's all just about being open rather than really rejecting them. So I already went through that, went through years of doing trying to reject it thing, and now I just have an open heart about it. It's all good.
Yeah. No, and I feel I've always kind of been open, because I was always interested in like mystical spirits, ghosts, and then a lot of people never wanted to talk about them. I was just like, even though I never experienced anything of that nature, I always would hear stories, because like we're from the old country where I think they barely paved the road in the part of Jalisco we're from, but they would always talk about like seeing these weird beings and entities and stuff, and I was like, are they just making this up because there's nothing to do over there? But then you start realizing they're real close to this like canyon and this mountain area, and so they're more out there in nature, right? And so they say when you're quiet enough, you can hear, right, your higher self or spirits.
Well, you notice that with any culture that's close to nature too, that they do tend to be much more connected to the spiritual things.
Yeah.
And when I want to have a spiritual experience, what do? I want to go in nature. I want to be out in the desert alone or something, at a hot springs. How do you connect more easily than being in nature? And that's one thing that we've really lost. As a modern culture, we have all these great things. Shelter and food, and I don't have to leave my house to eat. I can call someone to bring it to me. I mean, we live like kings, but we're so disconnected from nature. I think I would bring plants inside. See, there's even a piece of us that's like, we know we need plants.
I know. I know, it's true. I don't know if you've heard of like scientists, when they would go down into the Amazon jungle, they would ask the natives, like, how did you know how to mix all these plants to make ayahuasca? Yeah. And you know what a lot of them say? The plants told us.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they don't have all these worries and fears and anxieties and traumas. They're out there with nature. They're barefoot. They're grounding themselves.
The things we don't understand could fill volumes. Einstein said, what we don't understand is much greater than what we do, or something. It was pretty close to that. And I love that quote, because from a mind like his, what he's really identifying is that, we can do this materialist science thing where we prove something and then we know it's a fact because we can actually replicate it and show how it is and explain it. But what about all the things that we haven't explained yet? Are we just so darn smart that if we can't explain it, it doesn't exist? And you think about radio waves. They always existed. They're constant. They're everywhere. We're using them right now to record this.
Yeah.
And but did they not exist before we figured out what they were? These invisible waves in the sky that someday you can carry video on that will go halfway around the planet in a couple of seconds. That sounds like a magical story.
It does.
But that's our life right now.
It is.
So what else don't we know that we don't understand, and we don't know that we're not smart enough to understand? That's the stuff that fascinates me.
Yeah, and then we're also just using our five senses, right?
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that we're taught to use. And there's clairvoyance, there's telepathy, there's all these things that I think
sentience, there's all these different layers.
Yeah, and they're all, I think, beginning to come back online slowly. And the reason I was kind of bringing up ayahuasca is you're telling me earlier that you had an experience.
That was an experience, yeah. So I didn't. So I'm 58, and I had I'd messed around with a little bit of psychedelics when I was young, like in my early 20s. I did acid. I lived in Humboldt, so they force you to try weed at least once. I found that wasn't for me. I just don't do well with it. But acid was interesting. It was interesting enough that I did it a handful of times because I was like, But actually, I had a roommate way back in the day who he sold mushrooms. He went out, picked them, dried them, and sold them. His nickname was actually Mush. Everybody knew him by Mush. And we always had like thousands of mushrooms around the house, drying on the counters. And I was just like, I'm never doing that crap. That hippie garbage is not for me, right? So 48, I was going through my second divorce, in the throes of it. And a friend said, "What are you doing for New Year's?" I go, "I don't know." She goes, "You want to do mushrooms?" And I said, "Yes." And I laughed for 6 hours.
Wow.
And till my face hurt the next day. And the reason I realized later was the medicine knew what I wanted. I've never had that reaction on mushrooms since. But it was just, I needed to laugh so bad at that point in my life because everything had fallen apart to an extent that you can't imagine. Like 3 major things came to an end within 2 weeks. Like a death of a dear uncle, my marriage, and my job. Everything collapsed, and I was just struggling. I was about a month out from that. And actually, I was 2 weeks out from that, and I needed to laugh so bad. And it's like, here you go. So at that moment, I was like, wow, I've been judging this for years. 48 now, and I was in my 20s when I had that roommate. And it was the right time, the right place, the right medicine. And I used to scoff at the word plant medicine until after that. And I was like, I get it. Because it's not a drug. It's not, oh man, I'm going to go out and get altered and act like a fool. I mean, I can do that all day long on alcohol if I wanted to, right? It's not the same thing. Alcohol has never made me feel like a more amazing or interesting person with a better understanding of what's happening in my life. It's never made me feel better the next day. But having said that, it's also not a recreational drug. It's not one of those things that you go take to feel better. It calls to you. And so, getting to the ayahuasca thing, I had this sense that I wanted to eventually do ayahuasca. Now, 10 years have passed since I did mushrooms the first time. And I've done them, several times since then. I find them very therapeutic. But in the back of my mind, I thought, well, yeah, that's eventually going to happen. And the opportunity came along multiple times, and it was always the wrong time, wrong vibe. It was a no thank you instead of a hell yes. And then suddenly it was a hell yes. And so I reached out to a friend and said, hey, I know you recently did this. Can you put me in touch with your shaman? Sure enough, got this connection, went and did it. It was an amazing experience. They say ayahuasca is never what you are going to expect it to be, but it'll be everything you need. And I truly believe that's what it was for me. The odd thing was, to give you a timeline, it was a 2-day retreat, and the second morning we woke up and we're doing sort of the check-in after the fact, and someone announced that Trump had just been shot.
Oh, wow.
Which is not you don't want to be coming down from a really intense psychoactive experience and hear that someone just got, and I'm like, please finish that sentence. He got shot and but so fairly recently. But the experience itself was amazing because the gifts I got from it, the two of the big takeaways I got from it were, I owed someone I know an apology that's 30 years late. And it's something I've been aware of for a long time, and I consider myself to be a pretty kind person, a big-hearted person, a fair person, And it was what it was I ended up with this girl that this guy liked, and I knew that he liked her, and she knew that he liked her. And before anything happened, I asked her. I was like, you know, do you know that Paul likes you? And she said, yeah, but it makes my skin crawl. That's never gonna happen. And I go, okay, due diligence. I'm not being a bad friend. He doesn't have a shot anyway. We're cool. But I knew he held a grudge about that, and I thought, well, that's a him problem. You know, like I did what I was supposed to do. I feel good about it. But there's something about the medicine when I was under it that said he needs an apology more than you need to not make an apology. And so, and I have zero ego about it. Like I've done a lot of ego work, so it wasn't uncomfortable for me to do. The only thing that was challenging about it is he just wanted nothing to do with me. He didn't want to talk to me. He didn't want a phone call from me. We have mutual friends. So I just said, look, can I send you a text? And you ask him if he wants a text or not. It's up to you. It's entirely for him if he wants it. If he doesn't want it, that's fine. But that was beautiful. The other one that was really utterly unexpected, and I thought out of these, you know, brain bending experiences that you hear about people having, but the other one was just permission to be my full and true, authentically masculine self, which I didn't even know was a thing. I thought I'm fully developed within who I am as a masculine man, but I think I was 3 degrees off from being authentically masculine as I should be, which is what I am now. But it was as though someone just sort of touched me and said, "It's okay. You need to be that. Be that now." And the next day I was. It was that simple, and it was so subtle that nobody outside of me probably notices. You know, clearly some friends noticed my apology to Paul, but those were two big takeaways. And would I have in a million years thought that's what I would get from it? And then I asked myself, like, how horrible is ayahuasca that it would do those things to me? Make me that kind of guy who would apologize and be more authentic. I'm kidding, clearly. If people are like, oh, I don't know, it's kind of scary. I'm like, no, it is. If it's scary, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, it needs to be a hell yeah, or it's a no.
Could I ask, like, how the ceremony went? Was the shaman whistling, rattling? How?
Yeah, the shaman, she was classically trained. I think she was down in Peru for 2 years or something. And so she's very traditional about it. She's very one-on-one. She does a little one-on-one counseling with you when you do your medicine. If you want more, she talks with you about it before to really check in with you. She did some really great singing, some drumming, some fluting. It was actually quite amazing. She went for 5 hours each night, doing her stuff and then doing check-ins, and she had a second assistant there helping her as well. So the experience was very, from my understanding, it's very traditional. Since then, I've heard of other people saying, "Oh yeah, there's this other place you can do one from this person who, it's like I'm not interested in some guy who grew up in California who got a hold of some of this stuff. He wants to go ahead and sell to me. That's not the experience I want. I don't think anyone, if you can do the traditional experience, and if you can go down south, even better. Like I almost went to Costa Rica in January or February. Ended up putting it off a little bit longer because there's some great retreats down there.
Yeah, they're everywhere, and I think that's the great thing because a lot of people are afraid to leave the country, and then they have all this anxiety and fear that something's going to happen when you're in a foreign country. And if you can do it somewhere close, and like you said, somebody that's a practitioner that has been taught under somebody. I know a couple too, who's in Elk Grove, South Sacramento, and they recently came back, and they were out there from October, November, December, January, like 4 months straight, almost like every day doing it. And he's from Canada, and she's from here, and I find it interesting that there's people learning the ways and are able to hold the space for people.
It's I hate to call it a religious experience, but it is a deeply spiritual experience and very connecting with, you have deep connecting moments with people. For me, it was deeply connecting with me, like a piece of me that I don't always connect with that deeply. And I'm a meditator, so that's saying a lot.
How many hours of meditation, and how long have you been practicing?
Been practicing on and off for probably 9 years now.
Yeah.
And I've never sat for more than about 35 minutes.
Okay.
On average, like if I can get in 5-10 minutes here and there, I'm kind of happy. But the staying consistent is the challenge for me.
Yeah.
But I've had the most ethereal experiences meditating.
Really?
Just sitting and having moments like connecting with my 8-year-old self. Like completely unguided meditation, just listening to a tone. And there's really no words for, some of these experiences I've had there. Like I said, we tend to get cerebral about stuff because we're modern people and we're also men. Speaking for myself, I have to fight getting too cerebral about stuff. But when I have a mystic experience like that is, could be called nothing but spiritual. Really, there's no other word that really would fit. I just accept it now as a gift. Because that experience I had with me, and that was an interesting one because it wasn't just me, Stacey, at 50-something at the time, having this experience with my 8-year-old self. It was actually my 8-year-old self also having this experience with Stacey, the adult, who, by the way, is forever going to take care of that little kid. Like my inner child knows he's in my protection. And he's also out and having a blast.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing too, just because I've taken plant medicines and you've taken them. I don't think we're not promoting it and telling people what to do, right?
Yeah.
It's just sharing an experience, and like you said, meditating, you can get into the exact same states, and even autophagy fasting or intermittent fasting.
Breath work. Anybody wants to see what psychedelics can be like, but does not want to mess around with the psychedelic side of it, do look into breath work. There's a lot of great breathwork practitioners out there. Some programs you can get into probably for nothing as well. But with psychedelics, unless it's a hell yeah, it's just no. You've got to know it's the right time because it's all about the right headspace.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I'm not advocating for it either. I'm just talking about what my experience was.
Yeah.
And if it is a hell yeah for you, you'll get something great out of it, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. Like it did, and I needed this space too because I think if you do ayahuasca and you have a job that stresses you out, or a boss that you don't get along with, or a toxic environment, you have a day or two to integrate, and then you're going back. It's gonna be hard to comprehend and integrate your experience. You need time. You need weeks. You need months to really sit with it and understand it and break it down and unpack it. And for me, it's still been years, and I'm still getting things that I didn't understand. And of course, one of the first things it told me, meditate. That was the first thing it told me. And
tell you, motto, even if you do 5 minutes in the morning and five minutes at night, it'll serve you so well. I mean, it's strange. Within 2 weeks, if you do 10 minutes a day for 2 weeks, you'll feel like a different person.
See, and that's great, Stacey, you're telling me, because sometimes I put it off and it's off and on, hit and miss, and I could do like 30 minutes, 20 minutes, my legs get numb, but then you forget.
You also don't have to sit in lotus position. So that's one of the big, I can meditate right here.
Yeah.
Sometimes I meditate on the front porch just with my face looking at the sun, my eyes nice and closed and the heat on my skin. It's beautiful. Just being present, just witnessing your human self being present. Just drop right in. It's lovely.
That's amazing. Yeah, so I mean, that's the great thing right here with Stacey. I'm just taking all these tidbits from them, and I'm going to incorporate it into my daily life. And I just feel things are happening for a reason. Just meeting Stacey, and I'm sure he'll be on here many times. And I'm also interested about his experience down in Podcast Fest. Is that what it? Podfest.
Orlando.
How was that, Stacey?
Amazing. Yeah. So we were talking earlier before we lit the camera up about synchronicities and the concept that Carl Jung came up with, where there's that big thing that Carl Jung had where he disconnected from Freud was he started looking at the spiritual side of psychology, where he felt like the spiritual side was just as important, and it's that undefinable part that can't be measured, as in with material science. And so they had this disconnect, and so they kind of went their ways. But one of the things that Jung came up with was these weird things that happen that are inexplicable but are nonetheless incredibly powerful, and you know it at a cellular level. And that's how I ended up at PodFest. Like it just, I was thinking, I should go to this thing last year. I was like, I don't know. And then it came up again this year, and I was like, that's tempting. But I usually go down to Mexico and I camp on the beach with some friends in this little sleepy fishing village along the Sea of Cortez every January. And then I have this company that aggregates all my my episodes out for me called Buzzsprout, and they reached out and they said, hey, would you like a free ticket to PodFest in 3 weeks? And I'm like, I'm not going to Mexico. That was the universe telling me I need to do this thing I keep thinking about. And I ran into one other person at PodFest who also got a ticket from these guys. So they weren't giving out a lot of them. They just said, if you want to, you can apply for this, and we're giving out a certain number of them. I don't know what the number was. And the universe said, you're going to Orlando. So I ended up, another great synchronicity was I set an intention when I went. My intention was I want to learn more about how to monetize my show, but I want to try to build out my network of spiritual podcasters that I've been talking to myself about in another podcast for almost 2 years now. And I was like, all right, that's what's going to happen. I'm not, and I'm in this point where I'm just letting the flow of life happen instead of forcing it. So I wasn't walking around looking for other spiritual podcasters. There's hundreds and hundreds of people there. I didn't want to wade through it, but I kept sitting down next to people, having conversations, and finding out, oh, you have a spiritual show too? Great. So I'm having lunch on a sofa in the lobby one day, and boom, great conversation. Just had a call with her 2 days ago. She's joining the network. Her show is going to be number 3 of the 3 we have so far, mine, another, and hers. Met another woman there, or I picked up her card, but I never ran into her. And so I just reached out, talked to her yesterday. But I've talked to, I think, 7 people. It felt like I was at a podcast festival for spiritual podcasts, because it seemed like everybody I talked to was in that realm, and it's a very small niche, so it's a big thing. If you look at podcasts, most of them are interview shows. Yeah. So stuff like that happens, and it really can't be denied. Humorously enough, the other conversation, I had 3 interviews, Zoom calls Monday, and I guess that's yesterday. And the other one was a woman who had sent me an email, who was a podcaster that arrived the day I got back from PodFest. And I was like, I don't remember this name. I had so many conversations though. And I was like, I feel bad for not remembering our conversation at PodFest. She goes, what's PodFest? And she's a spiritual podcaster who's asking me if I want to be on her show. All right. By pure coincidence, the universe keeps lining me up with the people that I set an intention to meet. So what is that? It's a synchronicity.
It is.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
I love Carl Jung. Guy had a big brain.
Yeah, and I think, it's like we were talking earlier, it feels like a magical time, right? People are giving up, competing with, it exists, right? There's still people on social media trying to present something that they're not, and that's okay, right?
It's a time of change, though.
It is, and I see people are just, how can I be of service? How can I help you? Because that's an abundant mindset, right? And I think people used to have a scarcity mindset of, I can only have so much.
That is a big piece of it. I didn't think about it like that. You're right.
And I think people are beginning to realize what I'm giving, I'm going to get back. So why am I going to give away, judgment and criticize people instead of being open and like, what can I learn? How can I help? Because you're always going to get it back, and
it's an amazing time to be alive, because there is something amazing and spiritual happening in the world.
It is.
And I think it has ripple effects across not just people, but even animals. So much of videos, apparently my algorithm now has been trained that Stacey likes animal videos. It's like these things pop off on Facebook, and there's like a musk ox, and there's this tortoise that's upside down, and this musk ox is doing everything it can to flip that tortoise over. Why would an animal, a musk ox, care about a tortoise? And then another video pops up, and it's a dolphin pushing a sea turtle onto the back of a fishing boat, and they pull the sea turtle up, and it's got a rope around its neck that it's cutting on into its neck, so that it was helping it get up there so they could help it. They took it off, they released it back into the ocean, and they both swam off together. I mean, these are human traits, what we attribute to human traits, like the humanity of these animals. But it's not humanity; it's animal amity. I don't know what you call it. But there's this beautiful there's something spiritual about that. There's something greater. The soul of these creatures is emerging in a way that we haven't seen before. And I think the same is true of humans, where there's a lot of fear in the world right now, but there's also a lot of empathy.
There is.
There's a lot of empathy. And I think people's hearts are opening and they're being kinder. And that, like what you're saying about scarcity, people are losing their scarcity mentality. They're being more generous. And I think part of that falls into that space of, meaning and purpose. Like, I think more people, because we just went to a mass meaning and purpose crisis in the world. And I think we might be starting to resolve it. And I think a lot more people are going to come out of their depression when that happens, because when you find your purpose, you find your meaning, and that's your reason to get up every day.
It is. It's true. And yeah, I mean, some people are going to live in fear and continue believing that they have to go to work. And, like you're saying, when you got into crypto, it's doing better than the stock market. And a lot of people go, oh, but it's so volatile. And I'm like, no, just do your research, buy and hold, and just wait, because $100, $500, whatever you can get, and just hold on to it, because the whole infrastructure is already there, from like Ethereum and Cardano. Those are the two biggest ones. But I don't know if you know anything about XRP.
Ripple.
Yeah, so I think Bank of America already pulled a patent on it, and a bunch of these worldwide banks, because to make the transactions, they're going to be fractions of a penny. So that's what you need, right? And then Elon Musk might start integrating XLM. They're called stellar lumens. They're like 50 cents right now.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. There's billions of them, but
I got a little stellar.
So, and that's what you need, is these ones that you can use like $1, right? Like a stable coin or whatnot, or for day-to-day transactions.
There's like 5 or 6 really solid stable coins. I mean, like in terms of credibility. Yeah, there's some really good ones.
Yeah.
And that is probably what's going to happen. We're going on a Bitcoin standard. At least that's what the Trump administration says they're planning on doing. We're going to do not a Bitcoin standard, but a Bitcoin reserve, because we don't want to get left out, as other countries are actually going on a Bitcoin standard. There's a lot of South American countries that are doing that. Like Nicaragua or
El Salvador.
El Salvador is doing that. And I mean, there's a lot of things to recommend it. But the thing I notice about that too is like the idea of just surrendering and not fighting it. Like I was always fighting it when I was in the stock market as day trading, and I lost a lot of money. And I wasn't buying stuff I was excited about. I do have some stocks now, but you know what I've got? I've got stocks I believe in, and I only buy them because I want to support them. Rumble as a stock, it's a competitor to YouTube, because I found that YouTube is crooked. Oops, I just messed up here.
No, don't worry.
I find that they have very questionable business practices, so I want to support Rumble, because I think at Rumble, even though they're seen as being a conservative site, I think they're going to get over that, because they're getting more and more good programming on there that's not strictly conservative. As spiritual programs, I put my show on there as well, and maybe it'll take off there. I don't know, but I own stock in them because I believe they're doing something that's needed. And the other one I own is a company called Cybin out of Canada. They're a psilocybin research pharma company.
Interesting.
That's looking to use psilocybin for treating depression and other things.
Nice.
PTSD. So now, like when I don't fight it, but I'm doing what feels right, which was all the stuff with crypto. I wasn't scratching and clawing to try to make money on crypto. I was just buying it because why not? Whatever. Why not? I was telling Amato I bought the majority of my crypto with the stimulus dollars we got during the lockdowns. It's like I'm already working, so like, what am I gonna do with all this money? Like I'll just throw it at crypto, whatever. It's not even real. And it just took off. So,
And that's so great though. That's so great that
it's weird when you don't fight the stream and you just go with it. It takes you great places.
Yeah, it does. And I think that's kind of like our current state of humanity, is our ego a lot of times gets in the way, and we have to learn to get out of the way and let spirit kind of guide us, our higher self.
Oh yeah.
Just let it flow through us.
We could do a whole show on ego work sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You start recognizing how that's playing in your life. You just start scooting that out of the way. Oh, it's great.
Because I was watching your YouTube about being able to recognize your ego and your higher self, right? And I was like, this is perfect. Like,
oh, it's fantastic when you do the work. It's a daily thing. It's all day long. Once you get used to it, Amato, it's so great because I will have a thought come into my head when I'm having a conversation with someone, and I'll immediately do this thing where I just check myself. It used to be intentionally, now it just happens. Where it's like, where's that coming from? Is that from ego? And sometimes the answer is, yeah, actually, I'm saying that because I want to be seen in a particular way. And then I make the decision. And this is all instantaneous. Sometimes it won't matter because there's no negative intention.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I'm trying to impress this person by telling them this thing about me. And I'm like, are you okay with that? And the answer is yes or no. You're like, oh, no, that's not the version of me I want to be. So you don't say it. And sometimes you go along and tell them anyway. We're doing an interview now, so I'm telling you about the stuff that I normally wouldn't talk about.
Yeah. No, it's just, oh man, I just love it. And you know, sometimes your ego wants to get in the way and be like, why are you gonna go over there? You already worked all day. You want to put in more time, and then you have these conversations and you're driving home all happy and excited. Like, I can't wait to post this and help get the word out about Stacy here and help, you know, because I know a little bit you give here, then it spreads over there, and you never know who's listening or who shares it. And that's all it is. It just takes one person to see it and be like, oh, Stacy's going on Joe Rogan now. It's like, how did this happen?
That would blow me up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I should probably mention that. Yeah. So I've got the Soul podcast, but I've also got a YouTube channel called Soul Pod. So just look up the Soul Pod or Stacy Wheeler, and it'll pop right up. And it's same sort of topics.
And I'll put all his information, his links, his social media, whatever he has, website. I'll put it in the show notes so people can just click and send you right to you.
So if you are doing spiritual work, you'll like it. If you're doing spiritual or personal growth work, or just like philosophical discussions, it's really interesting the ones that take off. The videos that, like, I've had one that just exploded, and it was about meaning of life, and that blew my mind because I just thought, well, this is just me ranting about something I think is really interesting. You never know what's going to get people's attention, but there's always an audience for something.
Oh, there is. And you just have to be consistent, you know, just be consistent, keep growing, which I'm sure you're doing. And
my attitude is 2 a week, two videos a week. Yeah. Yours are tougher because you have higher production values than I do. I can just do it one-on-one with myself wherever I'm at, as long as I got a tripod and a camera.
Yeah. And, you know, I think eventually, well, I like meeting people, and my whole goal in 2016 was to just travel, to give myself an excuse, to force myself to get out of the house and go talk to people in different places, go hike, go find a hot spring, whatever.
Oh, cool. So it's actually forcing yourself to get out of the house and be social?
Yes, because I was doing Zooms and whatnot.
What a great catalyst.
Well, and I was like, you have to keep challenging yourself and, you know, facing your fears, because I remember when I started in 2016, I had the biggest imposter syndrome and like judging my voice and everything. And I was like, where is this coming from? But
like, who are you to be doing this?
Oh, yeah.
That voice?
Oh yeah.
Man, that's debilitating if you listen to it.
Oh, it was horrible, but I kept doing it. And I remember having guests and they're like, you know what? I think I had like 30 consecutive episodes, but it was so hard to get interviews because, you know, someone cancels and you're trying to get these numbers in before because that's kind of what Podcasters Paradise taught me from John Lee Dumas was get 30 in the bank, and then you start and you launch, and that way you have 30 days.
You're covered.
But it was hard because when people cancel and then you don't feel very secure about yourself and talking by yourself.
Oh, yeah, your inner voice will take you down if you let it.
And I was no way spiritual at that moment, you know, not at all.
Feel the difference?
Oh yeah. Well, just like you, right? Be confident. You know how people say, or some women will consider like, you know, people say the divine masculine of being confident and being, you know, of yourself and being genuinely you. And sometimes we're not, you know, and like,
well, sometimes we just have an off day.
yeah,
You know, even if you're confident and comfortable with yourself, it doesn't mean you're like that 24/7. I mean, we all have that moment where we wake up and look at ourselves in the mirror and go, Monday.
No, it's true. And I mean, it's done the same thing to me. On them, I would feel like every cell in my body was, like every mitochondria was like sparked with light. And I just
love those days.
I felt this confidence, like, yeah, but then when it wore off, I was like, I want to feel like this all the time.
You're going to be such a good meditator once it starts clicking.
No, and it's true.
You're going to get addicted.
Yeah.
Also, remind me, I'll make a great recommendation for a great meditation app that I love. Okay. Yeah, there's a couple of really good ones out there. If you guys don't meditate and you want to meditate, look up some good meditation apps. If you want, I can give you the names of them. You can share the links if you want.
Okay, perfect.
There's some out there that are free, and thousands of meditations on there for every level you can imagine. You can look up beginner, and you know they're wonderful. I recommend these things all the time. I wish I was getting, bonuses for clicks on these things because every time I recommend one,
you'll get there. Just like when you went to the
they
Podfest.
They don't have an affiliate program, so yeah.
Well, like you went to the Podfest, you're like, we'll see who I meet, and then you go there for free, and people are just beginning to be drawn to you. You're drawing them into you, right?
Yeah, I think it truly had a lot to do with just the energy of it, because just intention really matters. I mean, people do feel that. It's amazing. It's like, dogs pick up on good people.
Oh, yeah.
We have that too. It's just that we've stuffed it down so much, and we've convinced ourselves that we're this body rather than what's inside of it, on the spiritual level, on the consciousness level.
Yeah, when you elevate your frequency, those people, you start bringing those people in. Like, I just had a conversation with somebody, I think she's from Peru. I wasn't 100% sure what she does, and she wanted to talk to me, and we were talking about the exact same things, and she's been like herbalist, and she's been a little kid from South America, and she talks about the energy wheels, which are chakras, but it's a different saying from her culture, and we just connected right away, and she's like, wow, I didn't know anything about you, and I was like, wow, this inspires me that you're going on your path, and you don't have to really think about so much, and be like, I need to find this person, and they just start.
It's nice when it starts clicking.
Yeah.
And sometimes it clicks for a while and then it slows down, but I found that usually that's the energy, like my internal energy, and that's affected more than anything else. What affects that is the story, the story I'm telling myself. I am the most outgoing social person in the world unless I think I have an agenda. Like if I see a girl and I want to meet her, my energy shifts immediately because I just know that I have an agenda. And so it's like, but I can talk to total strangers and they think I'm hitting on them, because I don't have an agenda. It's all about that energy thing. Yeah. It's interesting to recognize that and go, well, I don't know how we overcome this, but I'm aware of it.
No, and because I do grocery shopping for the people that I work for, and just like you, like there used to be days where I'd be like overthinking or worrying about, because you get a lot of lists and you got a little window to shop for it, and then you see women smiling at you and trying to like talk to you. I'm not, but then now I'm like, be calm, breathe, and then you see it and you feel it and you go, oh, just talk to them. You don't have to. Yeah. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be thinking about everything.
I love the slowing down, man.
Yeah.
I may be finally in my life looking forward to retirement, because after a 3-day weekend, I was like, dude, this is what retirement feels like. I get one extra day off, and that's how I think.
Well, any last parting words? Anything kind of, if you could go back in time and talk to a younger Stacy, what would you kind of tell yourself?
Oh, that's good. If I could talk to a younger Stacy. Well, I had that conversation with me when I was 8. And that's a whole nother story. Do what you love. I think I tell myself to don't chase the dollars, chase the thing that you love, and explain that doesn't mean the girl. I did that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found that, you know, as I've gotten older, when I pursue the thing that makes me happy, that fills my creative side, like this with you, this is your creative thing. There's something about having something creative that when you're fulfilling that creative thing, whatever that happens to be, whether it's artistic or just creative, which just doesn't belong in that sentence. There's something really beautiful about that really fills us up. And if you can figure out how to do that thing that makes you happy, and figure out how to make that the thing you do for a living, you hit the jackpot.